Those are the three principal chords in the key of A. They are A, D, and E7. And we'll be looking at those today, as well as the E major, and trying a few different combinations, and then looking at the right hand to see what we've been up to there. Now, we learned the A chord in the last tape. We learned it as 1, 2, 3. We also learned it with the combination of the first finger on the third string, the second finger on the fourth, and the third finger on the second. And I suggested that sometimes I even play it with the second finger on the fourth, third, and second. Now in the key of A, your principal chords are A, D, and E7. Now we've done the A before, we've done the D before, and in the very first tape we looked at the E, and on this tape we're going to look at the E7. The E7 is exactly like an E, except we take off the third finger. So here they are, one string at a time. The E7 is the sixth string open, the fifth string behind the second fret, the fourth string open, the third string behind the first fret with the first finger, the second and first strings open. So you strum all 6 strings on this chord. And as we learned in the last tape about bass notes, the bass note for the E chord is the 6th string open. Because remember, E is your 6th string, and the bass note of a chord is its root name. So an E chord of any kind, E minor, E7, E major, the bass note would be an E, and E is the 6th string open. So let's start now by hitting the E, strumming the E7 chord, and hitting the bass again and strumming again. I'll play it once for you. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's try it together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, the basic chord progression, we're going to play 4 strums of A, 4 strums of D, 4 strums of E7. We'll play it very slowly. Get your fingers ready on the A chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Back to A. One more time. 4 A's, 4 D's, 4 E7's, and back to the A chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to look at something a little bit different. We're going to play that same chord progression, but in order to use the minimum movement, we're going to change some of the fingerings around. Have a look at that E chord, the E7 chord. You had the first finger on the 3rd string 1st fret, the second finger on the 5th string 2nd fret. That was the E7 chord, and you strummed all 6 strings. Now, have a look at that first finger again. Without taking it off the string, slide it up 1 fret, so it's now on the 3rd string 2nd fret. And if you put your second finger on the 4th string 2nd, and your third finger on the 2nd string 2nd, you have the A chord, starting from the 5th string. Now, if If you take off your second finger, take off your third finger, you're left with your first finger on the third string, second fret, which you know is also the first finger when playing the D chord. Now what you want to do, what you want to be able to do, is play the three chords, A, D, and E, without taking that first finger off the fretboard. Now have a look at this. I'm just going to play one strum of each chord and try to watch that first finger. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here it is again. I'm going to change the rhythm around a bit, but watch the fingers. They never leave the hand. That's a lot of work. But you see the benefit, the less you have to move, the more fingers you can hold down, the easier it's going to be to change from one chord to another. Alright, we're going to add one more chord to this. We know the E7, which is the third chord in the key of A, D, and E7 being the three principal chords. And please memorize that. Everything we put on these tapes is going to come back to you at another time in terms of theory or in terms of chord progressions. So the three principal chords for the key of A are A, D, and E7. But quite often, as we've mentioned previously, the seventh chord can be played as a major chord. So then your three chords would be A, D, A, E. Now here's one for you to try. We're going to play the E chord, then we're going to go to the D chord, and then back to the E chord. We'll do 4 strums of each. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we'll go back to the E, and we're going to go 4 of the E, 2 of the D, 2 of the A, and then 4 of the E. Let me play it once for you. 1, 2, 3, 4. Once more with a little rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's try it together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4. E, D, A, E. We'll try it again, and this time we're going to use the bass note followed by one strum. The E chord, bass note is the 6th. A chord, the bass note is the 5th. D chord, the bass note is the 4th. And then back to the A chord, bass note is the 5th. Have a listen to this. By hitting the bass note first, you get a little extra time to find the chord while the bass note is being struck. Notice my fingers are still moving. Makes it a little easier to make your change, but when played quickly, sounds very impressive. Let's try it together. One bass note, one strum. E, A, D, A. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alrighty, let's have a look at the right hand now and see if we can't devise some nice little rhythms to play. On the A chord, which is the first chord of our progression, we're going to add something a little different now. We know that the bass note is the tonic note of the chord, that is the same letter name as the chord name. So on an A chord, the bass note would be an A. And as we learned in tape number 1, A is the 5th string open. Now, there is what's called the alternate bass note, which is also a very strong note in the chord and played in the bass. Now we should note that when we talk about the bass on a guitar, we're talking about the lower 3 strings. Those 3 strings are called the bass. So bass notes would be notes found on the bottom 3 strings. Now, we know the bass note for the A is the 5th string, so we can strike the 5th string and strum down. Where the bass note is always the tonic name, the alternate bass note can be different. In the A chord, the most frequent bass that's alternately used is the 6th string. Now when we said to play the A chord, when we first learnt the A chord, you only strummed 5 strings. We told you not to hit the 6th string. That's because the 6th string, when played with the chord, kind of makes it muddy, but when it's played as an alternate bass note, makes it very, very nice. So now what we'll practice is strumming the bass note, strumming the chord, the bass, alternate bass note, and the chord again. Back and forth. Bass, alternate, bass, alternate, bass, alternate. On the D chord, I'm going to change on my left hand the fingers to the D. The bass we know is the 4th string. The alternate bass note is the 5th string. Bass, alternate. Play it along with me. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bass, alternate. Now on the E7 chord, The bass is the 6th string. The alternate bass is the 5th string. Let's try it together. Bass, alternate, 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't forget, you can use your thumb or you can use your thumb and fingers. There's many different techniques. I prefer at this point to use the pick. Now here are the chords A, D, and E, and I'll use bass and alternate. See if you can find the changes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, let's go up and have a look at that left hand again. Now that we've introduced the notion of alternate bass notes, we should go back to our basic repertoire of chords and see if we can find them. Starting with the G chord, which I'm sure you're quite familiar with by now. The bass note on the G we know is the 6th string, 3rd fret. The alternate bass note for the G chord is the 4th string open. Bass, alternate. Let's do it together. 1, 2, 3, 4. On the C chord, the bass note we know is the 5th string. The alternate is the 4th string, 2nd fret, part of the chord. Now remember, after you play the alternate bass note, you still try and play only the remaining strings. So in the case of the C chord, after the alternate bass note, you're really only strumming 3 strings. So here's bass, alternate on the C chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. On the D7 chord, the bass is the 4th string. The alternate bass note is the 5th string, a lower string. Alright, all together now. On the D7 chord, bass and alternate. 1, 2, 3, 4. Also in that key we learnt the E minor. The bass and alternate for the E minor is the same as for the E. 6 for the bass, 5th for the alternate. Here we go, together, bass and alternate. 1, 2, 3, 4. For the A chords, A minor, A7, A major, the bass note we know is the 5th, and the alternate is the 6th. Bass and alternate together. 1, 2, 3, 4. for the B7, the bass note is the 5th string of the 2nd fret. For the alternate bass note, you can use the 4th string 1st fret. Your finger's already on it. Or if you want to be a little adventurous, you can move the 2nd string from the 5th string 2nd fret, which is your bass note, to the 6th string 2nd fret, and then move it back. So you're actually alternating or to the 4th, and that's the B7. Now that covers your bass and alternate bass notes for all of the chords we've done. There are, of course, bass and alternate bass notes for every chord there is, and if you've got yourself a good chord book, you can use your ear and listen for them. It's easy to find the bass note because that's always the note that is the letter name of the chord. The alternate bass note can be a little more difficult, but if you listen, you'll find it. I'm going to play you some chords now that you already know. There's nothing new here, and I'll be playing the bass and alternate bass note. Bass followed by a strum, alternate followed by a strum, just so you can see the chords and hear the sounds. And this will help you when you're figuring out tunes on your own. We'll start with the key of G on a G chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. Little faster. Now, having learned bass and alternate bass notes, the next thing to learn, and the subject of future tapes, will be connecting chords with what's called a bass run. That's still to come. Now remember, your mission is to not just know how to do everything on these tapes, but actually to be able to do them. That's really the key, because by the time you get into tape 6, 7, 8, 9, it's going to be drawing on technique that you've learned in the other tapes. So please be very careful, learn everything on this tape, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you very much.